Welcome to the Master Breath podcast. Today I'm talking to Koraljka Begović. Did I say that right?
Yes, that was super correct.
And we're here at GaiaYoga School in Zagreb, and we're both teaching here. And you are teaching a lot of Vinyasa and Yin and prenatal. Actually, you're teaching almost all the classes. You're also a dancer and probably a lot more things that I don't even know about. So maybe shortly introduce yourself and kind of give us a rough summary of the things that you're doing.
Okay, well, first, thank you for inviting me to this podcast. And yes, I do quite a lot of sometimes different things. And the main part is just like the interest in the body and movement practices, different movement practices. So one of those things is yoga, or which I'm doing here, what you said, teaching a variety of classes, also like the private classes, and Vinyasa is kind of my first and biggest love, I have to admit that, and it's something where I really find myself like at home. Also other styles, I love it, but for me Vinyasa is something that is really kind of pushing me forward all the time. And also I'm a dancer, I'm a contemporary dancer, I am also a choreographer and author, so I also sometimes make my own work, sometimes I dance in different pieces from other choreographers. I also sometimes work as a mentor for like students or younger colleagues. And I also work, I used to work very intensively as a creative producer, but I kind of stopped that a few years ago. Luckily, it's less stressful.
What exactly is a creative producer?
Creative producer, I was producer for different dance and before that film festivals, and also producer for different projects in contemporary dance and performing arts field. So yeah. Just producing either projects or working with different companies or for the festivals, as I mentioned. But yeah, I kind of stopped with that. I still stayed a little bit active, a little bit more from kind of behind in this kind of work. Even more, a little bit more like as an advisor or assistant. I'm not very active in that anymore in the sense that I was before. And also sometimes I collaborate with different artistic organizations or individuals, helping them do like strategic work for development of a different organization, of like, or of the specific part of the organization, or development of specific project.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's a little bit also like strategic planning and the production and advising and mentoring and teaching. Wow. And dancing and moving, and yeah.
So it sounds like you love to work with people and that you love a busy lifestyle.
Yes, yeah. I love all the movement, like body movement, but also life movement. What you said, busy lifestyle. But then also, especially since the pandemic happened, so like all our lives shifted quite a lot at that moment. I kind of realized that I want to rebalance my life and everything that I do, like again, because it's never like very static. It's always like about the changes and the movements. So I dropped off some of the things that I was doing, and now it's a little bit more calmer, but still very, very active with a lot of traveling and surrounded with a lot of people. And yeah, I love working with people. That's really the main thing.
And in terms of, it sounds a little bit like dance was the first big thing that you were doing, like that started you off on this whole journey?
Yes, right? Yes.
And then yoga came in?
Yes, sort of. I mean, I used to dance when I was a kid. It was really, long time ago. And I started like that, but then I went more into professional dancing in my 20s, actually, early 20s. But in the same time, I actually tried my first yoga class. It was I think it was the first yoga studio in Zagreb. It was Nava Studio. Also,
okay.
Sandra gave classes there. But my first yoga class was with Sonja Repski, and she was also first Sandra's teacher, I think. And I really loved it. But at that time, I loved immediately. I was in love after the first session and after the first yoga class with Sonja. But it was also like I was also going back and forth because like I studied at that time. I studied actually at 2 universities. I finished preschool education and also culture and tourism, like management in culture and tourism, and then also a dance, contemporary dance master's degree. So yeah, I was kind of back and forth between the dancing and the studying, and then yoga was kind of coming and going. But then at some point, I was going. Actually, it was interesting. Like yoga kind of saved my life. I was going through like some difficult personal phase in my life, and the only place where I felt really relaxed and kind of living in the moment and being in the moment was actually yoga classes. And then I started to practice more and more regularly, and also I knew that yoga is helping me a lot for the dancing. So it was more at the beginning the tool for other things in my life. But then when I enrolled teacher training in, I think it was end of 2010, and when I gave my first yoga lab, when I was teaching my first yoga lab, everything changed.
But so essentially, I'm just imagining this, how maybe in your 20s, you're at university, you're just trying out all the things.
Yes, exactly.
And yoga was just something that really kind of you connected with very much. It was not like, okay, now I have pain or now I need something as a balancing thing. It was just...
No, it was just one of the things that I tried, and actually my sister recommended me. She was the first one, I think you know her, Koraljka. She was the first one that actually went to a yoga class in Nava Studio, and she was like, oh my God, it's so good. Like, you should try, I think you will like it. And then I went there, and that's it.
Okay, nice.
So yeah.
And how has this shifted over the years? I mean, obviously you have... First you practiced, and you did the teacher training, you started teaching yourself probably. Did you immediately integrate it into all the other things, the dancing and the choreography, the things that you learned from yoga practice, or was it more of something that you did for yourself but not really mixing?
It was, at the beginning, it was more something that I did for myself. I mean, this like overlapping of all these things and like approaches to the movement and the body kind of interlapped more in like recent, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years or something. But in the beginning, it was really more divided. For me, yoga was like the hygiene for my body and something that will help me do the other stuff and something that will help my body do the other stuff. So it was really, the purpose was, for me at that moment, was that. But then also with the teaching, things started to shift a little bit, but it was still kind of, okay, I'm teaching yoga, but now I'm dancing. I didn't like combine so much. But then in a time, as I was going deeper and deeper into the yoga practice as a practitioner, but also as a teacher, I just started to include more of that into the dance practice, and not only into the dance practice, but more of that overall into my life and into my lifestyle and how I live my life, because it's so much more than just like the movement and the asanas. But we all know that it's not only yoga about, okay, I will move my body in a nice way and I will feel good after that. It's just like I will really incorporate all the details from the yoga practice and from like different parts of yoga practice into my everyday life. And that actually came with like more with the consciousness of life and with the consciousness of like living a really beautiful life every day, and just awareness of having all these tools that are so amazing that I can incorporate in every area of my living.
Was there a moment where that shifted, or was it a steady process where slowly it was a steady process, but then also it was again connected with the, of course, like whenever for me it was like that, whenever I would face
some challenges especially in my private life, then I would kind of reach towards the tools that I learned, and then I thought, okay, it's just something that I do. But then when you really like face the challenge that are really like intense, then you realize that all these tools can help you in every day, in every time. So yeah, I was facing some like different situations in my private life, in my family life, with like some people being like quite seriously ill, and then like navigating those things and navigating those also like emotions and obligations and fears and everything just kind of helped me. Yoga helped me, and the incorporation and like kind of overall connection of all these areas happened then naturally during that time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I also feel it's always the same, that ideally you have a practice, in our case maybe it's a yoga practice, as this personal hygiene thing, which then just becomes this one thing that you do. It's like you don't really think maybe much about it, it's just really feeling nice to do it, and you notice how it balances you, but it's just a thing. And then you get a bigger challenge, or you run against the wall continuously and repeatedly, and then you pay more attention, and then that mindset that you use to approach your practice in a slightly different way makes you realize something new, because you have to try new things to overcome that. And then all of a sudden you take that into your life, and now it becomes really accessible.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, with the practice, with the meditation practice, with yoga practice, and with my artistic practice and everything that I do in my life, and also like working a lot with people, you learn so much every day from all of them. Also, just like having these like intensive encounters every day with a variety of different people, it's just amazing. But also it's something that brings you to a point where you realize like all of those things that we do in our lives, they're not separated, they're all just part of our lives. And the way that I'm waking up in the morning, the way that I talk to people, the way that I think about people and relationships and things that I have to do, obligations, work, this and that, is like very influenced then with the practice. But then the practice is not only like, okay, I come to a shala, I unroll my mat and I just do, I don't know, sun salutations or whatever. The practice is like every moment of every day. So this is something that, I mean, it comes naturally, but definitely like the specific moments of like hardships, what it usually is, when what you said and what you mentioned, when we face some specific challenges, then usually this like bigger shifts happened. So for me it was like a few specific points in my life, but then also in the meantime it was kind of, I would say, like boiling from behind, and all of that was already happening, and then you have some moments when it just like flourish in a way that like, okay, now I'm kind of incorporating all of that. And I also, like, I had situations where people will ask you, oh, okay, what do you do in your life? And then I would start to say all these things and this and this. I'm like, oh my God, okay, like how? And I actually had the difficulties at some point navigating, okay, now I'm a dancer. Oh, now I'm a teacher. Oh, now I'm a producer. So it was like a difficulty to like be aware that I have this like specific very different goals, very different roles. But then in a moment when I realized, okay, that's all part of me, and I'm accepting this variety of my life and my choices and the things that I'm interested in and the things that I'm doing, everything kind of falls more into like place. And it's not like, oh, it needs to be separated, or oh, it's very different. As you said, it's not so different. Like, I'm interested in people, I work a lot with people, that's like the number one. And then like this variety of different like approaches and inputs is something that is specific for me. So but to embrace this like wholeness and the differences is the moment where actually all the things can come together and not to be like a separate.
I mean, somebody might tell you like, why are you doing all these different things? That's like too much stress and too much different hats to wear. And then instead of kind of taking on that judgment, to acknowledge, but that's all me, and I'm expressing myself. It's like it's always me that is there. and that makes it
exactly that. And also, like, when you become aware of that, what you say, like wearing all these different hats becomes easier, because then you just embrace the variety of all these things.
Instead of now I have to do this. No, I also get to embody this in my life.
And I think like different things, like I also know in my practice as a teacher, I know that my experiences from other fields and from other things that I'm doing are actually enriching the practice of me as a teacher, and like the other way around. Me as a teacher sometimes make it easier for me to like be in a studio with dancers as a choreographer or author. So all these things are actually like intertwining, and then it's not so separate. It's just like it's all what I do.
Nice. What question that just came up when you were talking and sharing the story was, because you have a lot of people, they face challenges. And maybe they do yoga, maybe they come once or twice a week to the shala and they practice. But then they get an additional challenge, or they have a hard period. Like you said, maybe somebody's sick, or they themselves are sick, and they drop it because they don't have time. Yeah. Versus you, and I also know that from my own life, I usually say, okay, how can I use my practice now to help me with this challenge? What do you think made you actually look in your practice for something to help you with the other stuff, with the other areas of life, that didn't make you say, okay, now I actually don't have time for my yoga practice anymore?
Well, I think this is the topic now, what you say. For me, that's kind of the connection of like yoga on the mat and yoga off the mat. And I think this is like very, like it's an interesting topic. It's an interesting question. I look at the things like Rumi would say, like life is a balance of holding on and letting go. And like for me, it's always in everyday life finding these points, like where to hold on to specific things and where to let them go. Like for me, in challenging situations, I know what you're talking about. Like, okay, some people just let some things go because they don't have time for it. For me, it's like I always try to go back for at least a little bit, because I know how much it helps me. But then also the other thing that's for me also became maybe even more important is like it's not about unrolling my mat and doing my my physical practice and taking, I need to take, I don't know, 15-20 minutes every day or half an hour or something. Maybe I need to take time for yoga only in my mind, only thinking about it. And this is something that already helps. Maybe the things that I'm learning on my mat while I'm doing my practice, while I'm facing also like my ego every day and all the challenges that we all have every day in our bodies and in our minds. Like, so those things and those insights that I usually have on my mat, if I take that into my everyday life, this will maybe be my yoga practice for a while. So like at the moments where I stopped thinking, I have to do this every day, actually it became easier to incorporate those things, because sometimes yoga practice will just be, okay, I will be very conscious about what I'm doing today. I will be very conscious about my movements. Maybe I want to do like the asana practice, as you would say, but then I would do all the other things. I would maybe do my asana practice in my mind. I would think about my asana practice. I would think like, I wish I could do it. Okay, I can't today. Maybe I don't have time, but then I can be conscious, I can be aware, and I can be present in other ways in that day. And for me, that will already be like a yoga practice, maybe not asana, or if like very simple things. I'm not doing asanas today because I don't have time. Life is sometimes overwhelming. It is for all of us sometimes. But then I will be very aware about my body and my movements when I'm, I don't know, lifting things, when I'm in the connection with other people, when I'm doing some other things, when I'm, I don't know, buying groceries, you know, carrying heavy bags. So I'm incorporating the details from the asana practice or from other practices in the everything that I do in that day, and then that's already for me a practice. But it's mostly about the consciousness. This is what I realized. Sometimes it's like maybe I don't have, or I think I don't have time for meditation practice that day, but then I sit on my bike to go from like point A to point B, and then the biking is my meditation practice, and then I'm actually meditating while I'm biking, or different kind of
being in the moment.
Exactly that. So like all these things helped me go through specific periods of my life, and when I embraced that all of that is yoga practice in different ways and in different just shapes, what I would say, this is when the incorporation happens. And then when I live like that, I know that I will go back to the asana or unrolling my mat faster and more often than if I'm like, oh, I don't have time, I'll just like leave it there behind this door, and then when I have time, when all the conditions will be perfect, I will come back to that. And this is also the thing that people usually often they think, oh, I need to this and this in order to, I don't know, do the practice. When I let go, I was also like that, like at home, you know, when you have like a messy house and now you have to do this and that, and then you will unroll your mat in a perfect setting, and then you will do your perfect practice. And that actually doesn't exist. It's never like that. It's like you will always, even when you unroll your mat in a perfectly clean home, you will always see like a small piece of dust. You will, you know, so there will always be something else.
Find a reason,
you always find a reason not to do, but then like what if we always find a reason to do something? What if we just kind of not obsess about the things that are around us or the things that are not perfect, and just be in the moment as it is? Okay, there is a dust there, but then there is like dust on my body, so first I will move that, and then maybe something else. So I think it's just like about finding the moments and not insisting on finding the perfect moments.
But how do you get there, right? Essentially, I know exactly from my own experience what you're talking about, but how much do you need to practice in order to get to that point where you have that awareness, right? Because you cannot go, to your first yoga class and then be like, oh now it makes sense, right? It takes essentially years of engaging in some practice, maybe not years, but it takes some time of engaging in the process of always coming back to yourself, right? That's what we do in yoga practice. We get sensations, we follow the teacher, we breathe, and that brings us again and again back to, okay, I'm here now. Right? And just by repeatedly doing that, I get to a place where it's like, I can see the dust as less of a problem and make that choice.
I think of course for every person is different, and every person has its own journey, but for me it really what I found the most important is to just like to show up even on the days when you really don't want to, like you don't want to do that practice, you don't want to be aware, you just want to be, I don't know, whiny and complain. That we all want to be whiny and just complaining because that's easier, it's always easier to be in that state, but then where does that bring us? So I feel like the most important thing is to always show up in whatever state you are. Like sometimes you can also be whiny on a yoga mat, like you can do the practice and you can hate it in a way, and you're doing it but you don't want to do it. So I think it's again like coming back to this balance, and the balance between okay, I'm doing something that I feel comfortable with and I'm doing something that I'm enjoying, but also sometimes I'm doing something just because somebody told me, or just because I kind of mentally know I should do. So sometimes it's also a little bit, I mean, that's maybe not like the part of the yoga practice as we teach, but sometimes it is about like pushing ourselves. Sometimes it is about breaking this, like, I don't want to do it. We all have this laziness in us, but then like, sometimes we really need to push ourselves against that laziness, and then the things open up, and then the things come, and it's not like, oh, I want to do this practice or that. It's like, oh no, you know, my teacher or somebody told me I should do this every day, and like, okay, I will just do it because somebody told me to do it. That's also valid thing and valid reason. So I think it just it takes time. It's different for every person, for sure, but then when we start to incorporate those like awareness moments and awareness states of our mind and body into every day, this is when the real shift happens, I think, like overall. And when we leave the dogma, when we leave, you know, it should be this and that, it should just be showing up for ourselves, for our bodies, for our health, and of course showing up for other people. So it's just like the combination of all of that to really be there every day, every day, every day. And whenever we can, I think it's just to stop for a moment. We always have time to stop and breathe in and breathe out. We always have that time for that. And we always have time to stop and think, okay, how do I interact with this person that I'm meeting now? How do I interact with myself? How do I interact with the people that I know or don't know? How do I show up for my family every day, or for my friends, or for my colleagues? So just like always questioning and bringing that awareness, and that comes to a point where all these things can,
and I think I already thought that when you were talking about the last question, it comes down to self-responsibility and having this awareness that I can actually do. I have the power to do something that will make me or others feel better. Right? It's my choice to say, I don't have much time, so I will do just the mental practice. Or I will just focus while driving the bike now. Like, I will choose not to listen to a podcast like usual while I'm driving the bike, maybe, or you know, whatever else you're doing to put your mind on something. And instead just focus on the moment and not get distracted.
Exactly this, like just the knowledge of like, I'm choosing how my life will look like. I'm choosing how my everyday will look like, and I'm choosing how I will spend every minute of it. And it's totally okay to kind of, what we say, like lose time, you know, on nothing, do nothing, you know, spend a day with like whatever, and, you know, just like losing yourself in different ways. But then also with consciousness. Okay, I'm making a decision that today I will not be efficient at all. I will do nothing. I will, you know, I will be this like lazy person, or maybe sometimes even whiny or whatever I need in this moment. But then I'm not allowing myself to like drag into that hole. I'm like, okay, I'm allowing that for, I don't know, few hours, half a day, one day, if I need that, but then the next day, okay, today's a new day, and then, okay, today maybe I will push myself. So always like questioning this balance of like how much I push and how much I just
like
let go.
Have the discipline to do something, but don't push yourself beyond what you should be doing, because you will hurt yourself. But then, okay, you have pushed, you have done a lot, now it's time to rest, and actually consciously take the time to rest, and not thinking I'm lazy. Because usually it's the people that are really lazy that say, well, you shouldn't push yourself too much, right? And then they take that as an excuse. The people that already push, they say, no, you have to be really disciplined, really do it every day. Well, they should be learning to have that element of like, okay, I can take it a little easier.
And it's always in between that. It's always like this balance. Like, I love this one, like holding on and letting go also with ourselves, with this like discipline and pushing, and the laziness, or like just letting go. And I mean, the time spent in doing nothing is not always laziness. The time spent in doing nothing is also awareness, if we approach it in that way. The time spent doing nothing is maybe the time that we have with our close ones. So it's like, it's valid, it's the same valid as something that we are like, okay, we are very productive, we do this and that. it's not about productivity. It's just about being aware every moment what we choose, and especially for our bodies and like how we navigate with that.
Just a saying, I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but like, don't just do something, be there. Like,
Exactly.
You're very good usually in doing a lot of things and being busy all day, but then we're actually not there with our full presence and awareness. You said something just a minute ago about it's sometimes just about breathing in and breathing out. And I also wanted to talk to you about, I mean, after all this, let's say, career in yoga and movement and yogic practices in general, and the teacher trainings you did and all of that, you also enrolled in my breathing course like 2 years ago, 1 year ago?
I think like a little bit more than 1 year ago,
What made you think that would be something, I mean, you know, again, coming from already having all this experience and all these trainings, why did you think, or why did that resonate with you? Why did you think breathing is something that I could focus on now?
Well, because I think first, like when you mentioned the course, I was really like, I'm always interested to find out new things and to learn a little bit more. That was always my thing, like, okay, learn something more, experience something new. So that is like this, you know, just having that is one of the things that, like, when you mentioned the course, I was like, okay, interesting. But then what was most important, I realized at that moment that I was focused on my physical practice for a longer time. And that was kind of my priority and my main point. And I did also like the pranayama work during the teacher training. I did the pranayama work during my practice and my life, but it was always kind of in behind. And then when you mentioned that, and also that was the time where I was like, okay, I want something, you know, you have a practice, but then there is a moment when it comes to like, okay, I want to shift something. I want to make a step forward. I want to change something. And then when you mentioned that, I was like, okay, maybe this is something that will help me, you know, also in the other things. It's always like, okay, I have this, but then maybe something will help me to like make another step forward with this. And I wanted to just learn a little bit more. Like, I never learned pranayama from you before. And I wanted to see what is your point of view, how you are working with that, how you are teaching that, and to just bring more awareness into my breath and then like into my practice. So yeah, I did the course. I really, really loved it. And I think just like doing that course, I mean, all these things that we were talking now, like one big part of also this like awareness and like finding this balance and being in the moment was also very influenced by the course that I did with you. Which was really amazing, because one of the things I will never forget that while we were doing the course, you were like giving us, of course, like specific tasks that we do every day and all of that. But then we all know like life happens. And sometimes you don't have this, like, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes, like if you slept 15 minutes longer, you really don't have that 15 minutes. And then we talked, and then I told you, like, okay, yes, I'm loving it, but I'm struggling with, you know, doing this consistently every day, because, and also that was like after the summer, I think the course was, and like autumn is usually my busiest time. So I was like a little bit overwhelmed with everything that I had, and I wanted to focus on the course, but then I felt like I don't have enough time and what to do, so I was struggling. And then on one Zoom call, we talked about it, and then you said like, okay, if you don't have time, like do just this or do just that. So it was this permission of like leaving the idea I have to do all of it and I have to do it perfectly again. So just like remembering myself again, and you remembering us again. It's like, just do it. You don't have to do everything. It's also good if you can't do all of this, just do one small part. On one small part, maybe during the day, just do this, you know, tiny things. And this is something that really helped me a lot, because I didn't feel this pressure of like, I have to do this. Now I'm in this course and I have to follow all the rules. It's like, no, I'm in this course, and this course will help me in a way possible now in this moment in my life with all the other things. And I will just use the bits and the pieces of everything that you are giving us. And maybe I won't take everything, because it's impossible to always take everything, all the information that we get when we are, I don't know, learning something new, or like taking this kind of courses, even if it's like breathing or like physical, like asana course or whatever we do. We always take this like bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And like acknowledging that and embracing that was something that helped me. Like a lot of, just repeating, yeah, it's okay, you can just do this, yes, it's okay. And the breathing snacks that you introduced was something so important. And then I also realized, okay, if I don't have this 15 minutes in the morning to do all the exercises and practices that you told us to do, but then I can find in my day, what I mentioned, like biking, doing other stuff, I can find in the capacity in my brain to bring the awareness towards the things that we are learning about, towards the breath. I can find, those moments, and this is something that will obviously stay, because we are very selective when we learn something. It's like that. That's why teachers always repeat so many different things and so many times, because we're very selective with like remembering. And then when I allowed myself also for this course, it's okay to be selective. It's okay to, take the things that I can actually incorporate. It's not like all or nothing. It's what it is in this moment. So this is something that really shifted and changed for me, and also because it's connected with, like, we worked obviously on like breathing course, so pranayama course, and the breathing exercises, and we breathe all the time. And there is always a moment where I can be more aware about my breath. And just with you, like repeating the important things again and again and again and again, that kind of stays in the mind, and that is something that can just show up from the back of my mind in very, very different situations. Like I'm performing on a stage, and then I remember your voice and things that you said, and like inputs or things like that. I'm biking through the like super cold city in Germany in the middle of winter. I can't breathe, I can't do this or that, and then I just remember your voice with different inputs that you gave, and then this is already my practice. Maybe that's the practice for the day. Maybe it's not. Maybe I will come home and take like half an hour for the pranayama practice. But sometimes it's like, okay, this is the practice that it is, and it's valid as anything else. Because it's just like bring this awareness. So
thank you for sharing all of that, and thank you for the positive feedback. And I realized that also again and again. I used to teach or focus a lot in my teaching on like techniques and introducing like 50 new things because I wanted to share so much content. Until I realized that's not the problem of most people, right? I mean, most people have exactly that problem, like, oh, I cannot do 15 minutes, so I won't do anything. And now I feel bad about it, because now I'm in this course, but I also wanted to do it, I want to do it right, and now I feel bad, so maybe I should just stop the course, instead of saying, okay, what can I do? Or what am I thinking that makes me go, I don't have time, or I cannot do this. So these two aspects, like what's the minimum thing someone can do, which is take one breath in, one breath out.
Exactly. Just like being aware.
And the other thing, what are you actually thinking when you tell yourself things? And I realized that when I talk to people that want to join the course, and then they say things like, well, I really, like, it really resonates with me. I really need this. Like, I so much need this. That's what they tell me. I so hear myself, or see myself when I hear you talk. This is so much what I need. But then my husband would have to bring the baby to bed, and he has never done that. What's behind that? Well, I mean, maybe you really have a bad husband, but maybe you should just trust him.
Exactly.
Or make it so, because essentially when you say, I cannot say once a week at 8 I have something to do, you do whatever I do in that time. Essentially they say, I cannot say yes to anything that is me because I have all the other things. So it's about that, not about whether it's breathing or yoga or something else.
But also something very interesting now, what you said, like, oh, just trust him. This topic of trust is so important because we often just like, we don't do certain things because we just find so many reasons not to do, like the example that you just mentioned now. And sometimes it's about like, okay, I can trust this other person, that this person will do something, like my partner or whoever, like whatever is the topic. But then also another thing that is so important is like trust yourself. So when we say to ourselves, oh, I can't do this now because I have this and that and it's too busy and it's too stressful, and it's like, no, if this is something that really resonates with me, and if this is something that I know it's really good for me and for my health, for my body, for my brain, for like my overall being, then also to going to the point, I trust myself that I can do things that are good for me and that I will find a way in the busyness and in the like craziness or stressfulness of everyday life. I trust myself. This is something like, I trust myself that I can do this. I will find a way, and I trust myself that I will do it in the best way possible. So this is like, and it's not about, oh, I will do it perfectly, or like I will do everything like from 1 to 100. I will, like, you know, I will do every small bit and piece of this course. Maybe I will do like 80%, but then at least I did 80% and not 0%. So it's like, I trust myself that I will do my best with the specific situation. So it's this, and when we trust ourselves, then it's easier to trust other people also. And then that also brings like more meaningful and deeper, of course, connections with everyone around us. To just leave this space for a trust, for the things that can happen, for the possibilities, for changes, for shifts, for everything that is part of everyday life that can bring us into a state like more awareness and better for ourselves and for the others. I mean, also the more relaxed I am, the more open state I can be, and the more I can trust, right? I mean, and so again, to what you said at the beginning, if I know how to place myself in a state like that, through breathing, through mental things, focusing, meditation, through physical release of tension, etc., the easier I will get into that place where then things are allowed to happen, because I trust that the good thing will happen, right? And also our bodies, like our entire being, will be more ready and more resilient for everything that is happening. So it's like, I mean, this combination, like what we talked, okay, I do a variety of things, but this approach of like, okay, the yoga practice, the physical, the meditation, the pranayama, the dance practice, the art practice, the like functional movement practices, the strength practice, all of that, like in order that I'm able to adapt to everything that is happening around me, that I'm resilient, that I can, face all the challenges. So like, just building the strength, it's not only about the physical or like muscular strength, it's strength about entire being, to be there, to be present, and to be possible to adapt. This like activity, like comparing ourselves, for example, with animals, I think that's an amazing thing to do. Like, they're so much in tune with the nature, with the surrounding, with themselves, and this is something that I think is important for us human beings. I think we kind of divided from that a long time ago, and
analyzing things that we became less capable of just being present with.
Exactly, and just like being aware and sensing things, and just like diving into the moment that is happening now. But I want to, for a moment, go back to your breathing course that we did. like my first idea was like, okay, I want to do more pranayama work and, you know, to have this knowledge of like sitting down and doing my pranayama practices. But then something that became like, for me, I think the most important thing through the course, and then it's really stayed with me. I think it will stay forever, and that really made change also for my body in general, overall, was when you talked about recovering breath. And when we talked so much in detail about like breathing through the nose versus breathing through the mouth and all of that, and when you were actually giving us tasks, very simple tasks, like here in GaiaYoga, just, you know, like running up the stairs and like, and then how we work with recovering the breath and all of that. So this is something that really made a huge shift for me. Just like remembering that and always going back to the point of like breathing through the nose, and how do I, even if I have this feeling, oh, I have to inhale through my mouth, I feel this urge for the oxygen, and then I feel I have to, like how long do I stay with that? And how fast do I go into, okay, I'm recovering my breath differently. I'm not like, you know, losing actually my breath to breathing through the mouth, but this like recovering of the breath made a huge shift for me, like in everyday life, even, you know, with this, like with talking, we talked about that many times. It's like you are breathing, but then you're talking, and then if you add movement on that, when what we have to do when we are teaching like yoga class or teaching dance class or, you know, doing this kind of things, it's not easy. But then even if it's like a 1 second remembering, oh, but I am recovering my breath through the nose, it just made a huge difference. And I also realized that with that practice, like all my physical practices changed, and my stamina completely went up.
Oh, wow.
Like really, it's just like this recovering of the breath made a huge difference of just having more capability of staying in like specific physically demanding task for a longer time. And just, you know, recovering the breath much faster. So this is something that really like it stayed and it will stay.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. So you would say that dancing, teaching, what else are you doing? Like it had an effect on all these aspects?
Yes. Also, I mean, talking, like we all talk so much, and then like how do we talk? And also I know that like I usually talk quite fast, and I'm like, you know, just like very intense. I come from a very big family, and it's like if you want to be heard, you need to talk loud and fast, and it's like you need to be there. If you want anybody to hear you, you need to be there. So then like also through my growing up, I was like always talking very loudly and a lot and fast, and then it's like it's part of my character. But then now when I'm talking, like even in that way, I'm always having in the back of my mind this information of like how I recover my breath and how I do it, and then even the talking is a little bit, you know, calmer and all of that. And also I introduced like in last, I don't know, I think like a year or something like that, I introduced much more cardio work in my practice, and I really love it. It's also like some shift. I didn't do it as often before, but now it really became an important part of my practice. And then in this cardio work, the combination with the breathing techniques that you introduced and with all these details about how we breathe during the practice and what are the possibilities is just like, it's so different. Like, you know, I can do it like without, I mean, preparation. I can just, it's not that I run every day. It's like, I'm mostly like biking every day. This is one of my also like important practices. But then running is something that's, it's like it comes and goes and it comes and goes. And like even without having the stability of running practice every day, I can just come and I can do it like half an hour, no problem.
Yeah.
And this is something when I'm conscious about my breath and I'm doing it, it's like super easy. If I'm not conscious about my breath, it's something completely else. So this is the connection also that I realized, oh wow. So it's not only about learning, okay, how to breathe better or how to incorporate some pranayama practices in my life. It's just like how to combine all of those things so that my entire body, it's like, we are all getting older. I'm also getting older, but then I don't feel like that. I feel like I feel better and better because I'm incorporating all these different things. And I think like a lot of that was also influenced by the course that I did with you, which is really amazing.
Thank you. I mean, essentially, again, it gives us just this power as a, like, to have a tool that you can, or to have 50 different tools instead of just, now I'm out of breath and now I'm tense. But I
like, I don't know.
else to do, so I just keep pushing and pushing until I cannot anymore. Right? Versus, oh, okay, now I went up the stairs and it just takes me 2 breaths, maybe 5, maybe just 1, to go back to normal breathing, and now I'm normal again. Instead of, now the next tension that comes my way is not something that I add on to the already existing tension because I just release it. And oh, now I'm running and somehow I feel like I'm getting out of breath. Well, I can release my belly, I can change my position, maybe I'm tensing my shoulders and I'm aware of it, so I can release it. Maybe I breathe more with the focus on my throat instead of, in the nose. There's like 1,000 things you can do, and maybe one little detail already makes you go like, okay, now I'm back to normal running. Versus now I just have to push myself against this being out of breathness.
Yes, exactly.
For the next half hour. And then
but this, like, it always kind of comes back to this awareness. And what you said, like, I'm recovering my breath, maybe it will take 1, 2, 5. And it's actually not important how much it takes, but I go to this state of awareness. Okay, now I'm recovering my breath. And then if it takes, like, I don't know, 2 seconds or 50 seconds, whatever, but after this 50 seconds, I'm again in this like relaxed state and I'm aware of what I'm doing. So it's always like going back to this awareness. Like I would say, awareness of like 360 degrees. So it's like always being aware of entire surrounding and also like entire body. So it's just like this, I don't know, enriching all the senses and opening up all the senses. And the breathing, like we breathe since we are born until we die. So breathing is like the most important thing, and through that practice it's possible to do so much. So it's just like it affects so much. I love it. Like those are usually like the tricks with people who maybe don't have people like the beginner class yoga practitioners or people who maybe don't use their body in maybe like a way that we are used to, that maybe don't have such a high awareness. And then when you get them to a point of just like, bringing the energy through the breath practice and like focusing them, for example, on like just sitting and doing Ujjayi breath. And then you ask them after a few minutes, like, okay, do you feel the warmth? And then when they feel like, oh my God, so much is possible with just the breath, I think this is like, okay, this is a little bit of magic, bringing into the life. So yeah, it's just important to, and maybe they won't do the pranayama or the breathing practice their life or whatever, and it's not important, but just even giving them this small sensation and this small moment of awareness of like, I was sitting here for 3 minutes, I did nothing but breathe in a different way, and my body is already like warm and the energies are shifting in the body. It's like, okay, this is something that I'm sure leaves an impact for like later on, even if it doesn't become the part of their everyday life. Well,
I mean, I guess it also takes a couple of shifts to get to that point where at the beginning it's like, I have no connection to my body. And I'm not even aware of it, right? And then maybe you come to a yoga class and you do that, what you just explained, the 3 minutes of breathing, while someone is saying, now inhale, now exhale. Right? And you feel, oh wow, this was amazing. But interestingly, the next thought is not, oh my God, this is what I'm going to use now. It's like, once I was at a yoga class and we did this thing, it was really amazing. But you don't think, now I have to use it myself. So, and then, you have to go through that maybe a couple of times until you realize I can actually do that by myself. And then most people still need to go through a course or some continuous process that is guided, because otherwise life is distracting you all the time.
All the time.
Where it's like, okay, now you just focus a little bit on maybe, making the sound at your throat. Now just focus on breathing with your upper abdominal area. And so on, all the principles that we go through in the course. So that toolbox actually is established. Yeah. As a real thing that you can access like this.
But I think it's what we mentioned before. It's about the showing up. It's about the discipline. Because people usually think, it's more difficult to, learn specific movement or asana or breathing practice. No, the most difficult thing is to show up and the discipline. So this is something, it's like, I'm a dancer and a yoga teacher and a yoga practitioner and all of that. And then people sometimes think, it's so easy. No, it's not easy. I also struggle every day with this showing up. I also struggle every day with this discipline. Even after more than a decade of this practice, it's still every day it's the same thing. It's this beginner's mind, and in this mind and the world around us that is distracting. So every day I have the same task, showing up and showing up and showing up as any other person that just started the yoga practice yesterday. And it's we have more, I think, memories of, this felt so good, or this was so good for my body, for my life, for my being, and all of that. So this maybe gives a little bit more push, but it's the same kind of struggle. I mean, sometimes I say to my students, those days, especially in the winter, when it's really cold and the days are short, and the classes are at 6 o'clock in the evening, and you already feel the energy around, you just want to go home, be in bed, take a cup of tea, and don't move. And then I come here to or it's, the energies are maybe a little bit heavier, or it's a very slow and difficult day and gray and all of that. And then I come here to teach a class and people show up, and sometimes I tell them, I'm so proud of you. We didn't even start the practice. If I'm not a teacher, I wouldn't show up, You also have this moment, it's if you ask me, I wouldn't show up today for the practice. But then I see all of them, showing up for their practice. And it's also, it's this reciprocity of, inspiration of just showing up. So it's always, I think it's always about that, and it doesn't get easier.
Well, do you have some tips,
but it gets more rewarding.
Do you have some tips or advices on what you are doing maybe to make it easier to show up, even if your mind says or your body says, I don't want to today?
When everything says I don't want to, it's always I always try to approach, this is my tip or trick or something that I say to myself in my mind. It's I have this day and I want this day to count. I want, I don't think about when I'm trying, the biggest, I think, trick or tip would be not thinking, today I'm a little bit tired, but then I can do it tomorrow. Not think about tomorrow, think about just what is today. We have this day, we have this 24 hours, and how do we use these 24 hours? So this is something, because you never know how tomorrow will look like, and just, this is the important, tip, just using what we have now in this moment, in this day. Do I have a body that's healthy? Do I have the body that's capable of moving? Okay, I use it. I mean, it can sound a little bit depressing, but it's true. It's the reality of life, that we never know what will happen tomorrow. And there are so many different situations in our lives that surprise us and just comes in a second. So it's not regretting is something that always led me through the life. I don't want to regret that I didn't do my practice yesterday, because maybe tomorrow I will wake up with cold and I will have, high fever, or I won't be able to breathe at all because my nose is, this kind of things. And it's okay, I don't know how I will wake up tomorrow, so I want to use what is today.
Yeah.
Today I'm healthy, today I have this body, today I can do this, today I can take, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, 50, 60, maybe even 19 minutes for like different practices.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I want to do it today then, because tomorrow you don't know what will happen and what kind of day.
I'm so privileged today that I wake up healthy, so I can.
Exactly.
I gotta honor that by doing something.
Exactly that, and I actually took that a little bit that trick because I traveled so much for work, for pleasure, for everything, and then when you're traveling somewhere to a new place, to a new country. And you just want to use, because you have very limited time, and you want to use that time in the best way. You want to see so many different things. You want to do many different things. So you want to really use that time in the best possible way. But then we come home to like a thing and place that we know, to the familiar setting, and then it's so easier to dive into this, postponing things, like taking things for granted and all of that. And we don't have that mind. Like when we go to a different city, maybe to a new place, we have this beginner's mind, and we have this like children mind that is like everything is new, everything is interesting, and I want to use like 100% of all of that. And then when we go back to like the home place, to this like calmness and safety is amazing, it's so important. But then like, can we bring this beginner's or childish mind into these known places, and can we always approach every day and every specific situation or person with this state of beginner's mind? And this is something that is really like leading me to this, okay, I will show up. Because, oh my God, what kind of practice can I have today?
Yeah, but for that it actually needs something, which I also sometimes say to people in my soul, for example, in the Ashtanga practice, like, where could he challenge you? where you're like, oh, this is what I want to try today. This is what I feel like engaged in exploring. Like maybe it's a handstand, maybe it's a back bend, maybe it's some kind of cool hand balance posture, where it's like, this is exciting. I want to get out of bed to try that today. And then breathing can, of course, be that. Like, I mean, because from outside it looks very boring, right? If you just breathe. But I find maybe not excitement is the wrong word, but some thrill is also the wrong word. But kind of like, okay, how nicely will I be able to hold my breath today, right? Like because at the beginning it might just be like hard to hold your breath, but when you get to long breath holds that are very precise, you really gotta, like, you're really riding the edge in a way, right? Like, it has to be precise. If you just start thinking about the coffee you will have after, then you already lose it and the pressure goes away and then you cannot exhale for whatever 30 seconds, right? But the breathing can be the excitement itself, but also can be like, well, I know I want to do the handstand or the other crazy thing that I might want to do on my mat. And the breathing will help me with regulating the pressure and staying calm and staying stable and all of that. So
and then that's the knowledge of it. That's the knowledge, like, okay, this will help me to do this. But then for this like tips of really showing up, I think this beginner's mind and this like childish openness to the world and everything around us is something that really like shifts. Always like approaching beginner's mind. We are never professionals. We are always beginners. We are always like learning more and more every day. So,
nice. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. Is there some place that you would like people to like if they want to check out what you're doing, and if they want to follow you, are you on Instagram? Do you have a website? Anything that you want to share?
This is something that I'm really bad with. Okay. So it's like, I don't have a website. Okay. I only have... I'm thinking like, okay, maybe it's time to do something like that. Yeah, I don't have a website. I only have like a Facebook and Instagram account. So like something very basic. Even my Instagram account is kind of, that one that is like locked, like closed, like private, and then So it's like no. I'm open for that. I think like my Instagram account is something that is maybe the place to follow and to keep up with the things that I'm doing. Yeah. And I think what's the name? Korkica, I think.
Okay, well I can put the link on that. Because essentially, people might want to check out your performances.
Yes, definitely on Instagram account. I use that account for placing out there the things that I'm doing or what is like happening at that moment, either here in Shala or in the dance practice.
That's anyway a good place to check out your classes, right? You're teaching here at GaiaYoga School. Exactly. You teach also Vinyasa Masterclasses regularly, and so I invite everybody to check out your wonderful classes and workshops.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and it was great talking, and I hope everyone listening was enjoying as much as we were.
Thank you.